Edyta from Laundry Basket Quilts, and I'm looking forward to make with you a simple blog for our quilt Norway. The quilt that is hanging on the wall behind me right here is made with our newest fabric collection called Royal Blue, and I chose two fabrics from that collection, a beautiful light blue and just a little bit of a light with a little basket on it. So we just need two fabrics for this beautiful quilt. Let's see what I have in my basket today. First, I have a pattern, and this pattern is a free pattern that you can download on our website. I don't know if you know this, but with every collection that I design for Andover, I design a free pattern. Easy to make, something that maybe you can enjoy a collection in it. You can go to my website, go to PDF patterns and download this kind of pattern for yourself and work with our fabrics and make a variety of beautiful quilts. In the pattern you find cutting directions, then the layout of the blocks, how to make them and how to put the quilt together. Also in the back you find a whole list of all the fabrics that are available for a collection. So this one, like I said, is Royal Blue. It calls Norway. Oh, it's one of those beautiful places that I would like to visit. So we have our pattern. We're gonna put it right next to us. Then we're gonna need fabric. Like I said, for this quilt, I pick two fabrics, blue and a light. The yardage, how much fabric you needed, it's in the pattern. So once you download the pattern, you're gonna know exactly how much you needed. And this particular quilt can be made with any color combinations. And speaking of fabric, if you like the two, you're gonna love those brand new bundles that we just got it. Those are fat quarter bundles, and in the bundle you get the full collection. If you wanted just a little taste, Fat 8 bundles are really wonderful to play with it. We also have layer cakes that are great to give you exactly what you need to see what's available in a collection. In the layer cakes you have squares that are 10-inch squares, and they're really fun to work with it. For the quilt that we work today, also a jelly rolls could work great. I have right here a jelly roll from another collection that I designed called Something Blue, and the jelly roll will work great for this pattern because the first thing that we're gonna cut is 2.5-inch strips, and jelly rolls are made from 2.5-inch strips, so that would be nice. For a fun variety, sometimes when I make scrappy quilts with a 2.5-inch squares, I like to use charm packs. I have some light charm packs and there are some blues. We also have a little bit of a red charm packs available. This gives me a fun combination if I want to make the same pattern in more patriotic colors. Why charm pack? Because charm packs are 5-inch squares, and you just take this charm pack and cut across from here to here, not here to here, just like this. You're gonna give you 4 loose squares of 2.5 inches. But for now, let's focus on just the two fabrics that we have in front of us, and this is what we're going to use to make our blocks. In the basket, I also have my newest threads that match with Royal Blue collection called Diana, and this blue right here is gonna be a perfect blue that I can match it with my fabrics today. All right, so wonderful threads. For the basics, I recommend 4.5 by 12.5 Creative Grits ruler, one of my personal favorite, as well as beautiful Macrotex needle for sewing, as well as our favorite pins. And our previous videos, some girls were asking which kind of pins there are. I love those glass head pins, and I brought a little package for you to see. It's patchwork pins, they call them, clover, and they're super fine, extra fine pins. Those are one of my personal favorites. I love to pin it when I'm sewing, especially when it's a long distance. I would use pins. So first thing we're going to do, we're gonna press our fabric. And as a advanced quilter or beginner quilter, many times when we're pressing our fabric and we have a big piece of fabric, it's harder to work with it. So what I like to do, I like to cut my fabrics to fat quarters and cut from fat quarters because it's easier for me to handle a fabric. So I would take a piece of fabric, press it, and now this is a fat quarter. Fat quarter is 18 inches by 21 to 22 inches, and I'm gonna fold this in half just like this. And now I'm going to cut strips. From the strips, I'm going to cut squares. And I just finished cutting, and I'm gonna cut light squares and dark squares. Let's see if I cut it enough. I need 5 light squares for the center. So right here, we're gonna make a simple block that it's a 9 patch with a little frame. Then I need 4 blues, just like this. Here, oh, is this wonderful? And as I'm lining my pieces in front of me, before I start stitching, I'm paying attention to the directions of fabric. What that means is that the printed design on the fabric has a direction. In this case, I have little branches of flowers, and they can I can now decide, do I want all my branches of flowers to go the same direction in my block, or do I want to make a little fun and scrappy and rotate them a little bit and have some fun with it? I think I'm gonna have some fun with it and toss them and turn them. Not always you have to follow direction of the fabric. Sometimes you can turn them around and do whatever you would like to do. It is your quilt. So I just finished laying up my 9 patch for the center. Now I'm gonna put 4 squares on each corner, and now I'm gonna add those pieces to check if I have cut it right, how everything looks. On the smaller pieces, you could not see the direction of the fabric as much. On the larger pieces, you could definitely see where the flowers are going. So I'm, again, because I'm tossing and turning, I'm gonna make sure that I turn them in all different directions. Those go this way, I'm gonna turn this guy this way, so the flowers kind of go towards each other. I look at the block, I'm pleased with it, I'm ready to sew it. I'm going to start sewing by taking my rectangle, placing the square, and sew a little square on a left and a right. Push those 2 guys to the side, then take this one, sew it here and here. Okay, those gonna be 2 seams that I'm gonna make and 2 seams that I'm going to make. Then the center 9 patch, I'm gonna sew it into the row. First row is gonna have 2 light squares, and again I'm gonna place it right sides together, sew it, flip it open, press it, and I'm gonna follow 101 pressing. All the seams will be going towards the darker fabric, what in this case is the blue fabric. So this row, and look at it, in no time I have 3 beautiful rows. As soon as I finish sewing rows, I am ready to put those rows together, and I have one already prepared for you. Let's check if I did a good job. Notice this, I just finished sewing here and here, push my seam allowance towards the dark, beautiful, perfect. I'm gonna lay it right here. Now this one also, push the seam allowance towards the center, towards the dark, perfect. This is my first row, second row, third row of my 9 patch. Why do I push those seam allowance towards the dark? To hide them behind the darker fabric. And also to help me lock some of the seams. I want to lock this seam with this seam. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to place this right sides together, just like this. Look at how nice. I'm gonna feel it with my fingers that everything is right. I'm gonna grab my beautiful pins and pin it for myself. Long time ago, somebody taught me that in a shorter distance there is a less area to make a mistake. on a longer area when you sew. It's a longer distance, more area to make a mistake. So pinning is super important. And remember to pull those pins away as you're approaching with your needle and your foot of your sewing machine. Stop, pull a pin, keep sewing, pull the pin, and keep sewing, making sure that the seam allowances are going in the opposite directions. Once you sew this, you're going to be able to open it up, press it, and make sure you sew the other side. As soon as we finish sewing this to this, this to this, our next step will be taking the rectangle, sew to the right, sew to the left, then add now those seam allowances going to go towards the blue. Remember, go towards the blue. We're following 101 quilting. Push your seam allowance towards the darker fabric. Then you would take the top unit, place it, pin, pin, pin. Why do I pin in the middle? Remember, long distance, we don't want the fabric to wave as we're sewing. So not only pinning where the transition points are, but also pinning right through the middle would be really good idea. Sew it, flip it open, and then next one, sew it, flip it open. I know you are excited to see how the block looks, and I have one already made just for you. Look at this. Look at this. Isn't that wonderful? After finishing my center four-patch, I always like to put my ruler over it and double check that my measurements are what are supposed to be, what they're 6.5 by 6.5. So as soon as you finish that center four-patch, you need to check it with your ruler. If it's a little bit too big, trim it. If the 9-patch come up a little bit too small, you're gonna need to adjust your 1/4-inch seam allowance on your sewing machine. And with your first block, you right away gonna know it. And your first block could be your humble beginnings, just trying things out, see how things work. Make sure that the next block gets better and better and better. With every block, you are going to only get better in quilting. And notice it. Let's flip this from the back. Pushing the seam allowance, just like we talk about it, towards the darker fabric allows us to lock the seams and make a beautiful block. If you make a 1, you can make a dozens, and now you're ready to put this block into a beautiful quilt. And let's talk about this quilt. As soon as you have your blocks finished, you're gonna have alternating blocks of the blue fabric that you're gonna want to put it right here. The size of those blocks will be exact the same. Those are 10.5 unfinished, and those gonna be 10.5 unfinished. Now we're gonna sew them into the rows. When we finish our rows, we're gonna sew rows together. Remember, pinning all of the points when we sewing rows together, it's very important, and you're gonna have a beautiful quilt. Let's talk about few other color options for this lovely quilt. If I want to make this quilt a little bit more patriotic, I would have chose 2 charm packs. I would have chose the red one and a light one, and alternate some of the light squares with maybe a little red square here or there. Immediately, it would be a perfect quilt for veteran or somebody that served this country. So it's a lovely way to change this look of the quilt. Or maybe in your mind, you would like to have a quilt that has a light background with blue little patches going right through it, and I brought one block already made for you. What I did is use the same cutting measurements, just reversed the colors. So where there was a blue, I put a light. Where there was a light, I put the blue in it. Notice how beautiful this block is. The only difference that I noticed as I was making this option is pressing. So first I press towards my dark, no problem here. But then my second seam, I opened that seam. When I sew my 9-patch rows together, I opened that seam. Why did I do this? Because my blue was peeking through my light, and I didn't want that. So I had that option that I can open it. Long time ago, we have been taught to push our seam allowance one direction because of the bedding that like to come through the seams. But today, with machine quilting and wonderful beddings from Hubs, we don't have to worry about it too much. And also, with pressing the seams open, we don't have to worry about having the fabric only on one side of the seam for hand quilting. So opening the seam is okay because we're gonna plan to machine quilt. Now the next thing, we're going to sew this to the center, and notice I pushed those seams towards the center of the block where there was more of the blue, and I could hide the seams behind it, keeping this area nice and open. And then if I do want to stitch in a ditch around it, I know that seams will push towards the center. So that's another option. You also could choose something more colorful and add a little sparkle to it with multicolors into the patches. And for this area where you just have a plain square, what about choosing one of our newest items that we have? We have beautiful blocks called spring sprouts, and I opened one of the packages and I made a really cute applique block, and I can put that block right here, and I can use this as almost like a sashing between my applique blocks. This block is 9 inches. What do I need to do to make this 10 inches finish? So 9.5 unfinished, 10.5 unfinished. All that I need to do is add a little 1-inch strip, what is gonna give me a little bit extra around it. And I like to use a big print for some of my blocks when I need a little extra sashing. Why do I think of a big print? Normally you would shy away from a big print because you're cutting that big beautiful flowers to tiny little slices. I like to do that because with a big print I get a lot of variety of color, and notice how happy and sparkly this look. It would be perfect little frame between right here, and then have those in multicolors, maybe from our linen texture charm pack. This may be the setting I'm going to use for my spring sprouts blocks. And the spring sprouts blocks, there are 12 different blocks that come in a packages already pre-cut for you, press, and there's also additional pattern for a different kind of layout, but this layout really stretches those blocks and make a larger quilt for me. So I'm excited about working on that. My next project. I love that you took the time and quilt with me today. Thank you so much for all your wonderful comments that you leave me. Please remember to visit our website at laundrybasketquilts.com. We always look forward to hearing from you, and happy quilting!